So basically, I'm a new truck driver, and what I've noticed is that a lot of people hide behind this idea that because I'm a new truck driver, I'm not supposed to be paid or whatever it is. Got my truck, I got my license, my CDL license, the 26th of October. I'm currently working for Western Express, and numerous amounts of drivers talk about how messed up Western Express is, and so on. I've heard stories of one driver in particular taking police on a high-speed chase after committing a robbery in a semi-truck. I heard another story of a driver taking out a police officer, killing them on the side of a highway, running them over. I see a lot of truckers, you know what I'm saying, making videos in reference to their quote-unquote career, discussing who makes it and who doesn't, who's successful and who isn't. And one of the things that's missing when discussing all of these professions, one of the prohibited topics is race. I just spoke to a truck driver who's been driving 20 plus years, an older black gentleman. I talked to him in Atlanta, and basically he emphasized that my company specifically underpays black drivers. They pay basically white drivers double the amount that they'll pay a black driver. And that's what's not being discussed when talking about employment. You know, we have a lot of people, a lot of politicians, a lot of white people in positions of leadership, a lot of black people in positions of leadership who get on these platforms and discuss the lack of work ethic within the black community and they point to this as to the reasons why black people are in the conditions they are today. Let me say this. Fuck you. And this is the 1st of February. And, black people have we've already pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps. I'm not only a truck driver, I'm a college graduate, I'm a high school graduate, I'm out of the Washington, D.C. area. And I am not of the mindset that it's somehow my fault that I find myself in this position. I grew up in a fatherless household, ran by a single black mother. My mother died in 1996. I've been paying for the sins of my parents since the day I was born. But aside from that, I've gone on to accomplish things that, a black person is not supposed to accomplish. Despite my difficulty throughout life, despite the tragedies that I've witnessed and dealt with in regards to losing my parents, watching my peers and other black people around the country murdered, I was still subject to this white supremacist system. The trucking industry is no different. I've been driving a couple of months now. I had to share a truck with a white guy, which was not the greatest thing. But, I've bust my ass. And there's only so much a black person can do considering the heinous or how heinous white supremacy is. A lot of times you can learn more from a person based on what they don't talk about. You got a lot of black truckers out here who talk about being an owner-operator or whatnot, the trucking industry and how they have made it per se, lying, beating around the bush about the topic at hand. I'm here to tell you that I've dealt with racism prior to getting into the trucking business. I'm experiencing an extreme form of racism currently in the trucking industry, working for the company Western Express. I am being penalized for being aware of my race and the practices of white supremacy. A lot of black people believe that black truckers, black people who have employment or are working under the umbrella of a white supremacist organization, many of us believe that if we don't talk about these issues, we're somehow safe. That is not the case, and it never will be. I'm here to tell you that, when you listen to these truckers, these white people talk about the industry as if it's not racially based, I'm here to tell you that that's some bullshit. I'm going to be the first one to tell you that. I'm not trying to sound sweet per se. I'm not trying to sound or be somehow better than the next person because I'm talking about this issue, but I don't see it talked about enough. Again, you can learn more about what a person doesn't say than what they actually say. I'm grossly underpaid. The guy I talked to who was in Atlanta, he said that my company specifically, again, pays their white drivers double what they pay black drivers, and in some cases triple. Western Express is based out of Nashville, Tennessee, where it is believed that the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK, was founded. Let me say this. For all you guys who get on here and try to get black people to forget about race and somehow internalize the racial practices of white supremacy in this nation specifically, shame on you. I hope you are punished greatly by the ancestors, especially if you're a black person. Definitely if you're a black person. Your cowardice will not be overlooked by those of us who deal with racism day in and day out. I am currently blacklisted by many people. Nevertheless, many white-owned corporations and employment places. But nevertheless, I've gone on to get my hazmat endorsement. I'm currently in the process of getting my triples and doubles endorsement. I've dealt with racism in the workplace in the form of being underpaid. I've dealt with racism in the form of being let go without reason. Again, I graduated from college 2013. I graduated from high school 2008. I graduated from high school 3 years late. I graduated from college 1 year late. Today is the first day of quote-unquote Black History Month. I'm just here to say that despite my efforts, despite my sobriety, despite my accomplishments, I am still subject to white supremacy. Despite the trauma I deal with on a daily basis, despite the psychological warfare that I am faced with, despite the isolation, I am still subject to white supremacy. These employment places, these trucking industries, the trucking industry, these trucking companies are not totally separate from the overall agenda of white supremacy. In many cases, black truck drivers and other truck drivers are hauling material that further assists white supremacy in its stranglehold over the black population. With that being said, fuck you, man.